My name is Christoph Reichert. I'm the founder of CBI Technology with offices in California. We're headquartered in Huntington Beach with an additional satellite office in San Francisco. CBI Technology is an Intuit QuickBooks Premier reseller as well as a Microsoft Tier 1 cloud service provider. We sell and implement the QuickBooks Enterprise, Dynamics 365, Office 365, and Microsoft Customer Engagement Solutions. Today I would like to go over a commonly requested comparison, which is QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum Edition, which is the product that includes the Advanced Inventory Control module, to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central solution. We represent both of these systems for our clients, mostly, of course, in the distribution and wholesale environment. Sales order processing is obviously a key area of any ERP system solution, and as such, we have chosen that very particular area to compare the two systems to each other. Hopefully, by switching back and forth between these solutions, you get a good sense for how these software products work and how they differentiate each other from each other. As part of this process, we're going to go over creating a brand new sales order. And as part of that process, we select the customer, create order header, related data, line details, sending a confirmation, and then finally retrieving existing orders from the system. So this brief example, we hope to give you a good sense for both solutions and what they are capable of doing for you and your organization. Hi, so here I'm in a fictitious company called Lot Manufacturing in QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum Edition. This is version 19. We're at the tail end of the fiscal year. Intuit is about to release 2020. There are a few additional features that are going to come out pretty soon, but essentially the sales order processing module will stay very similar to what you see today. This is the home screen of QuickBooks Enterprise. This is the Advanced Inventory module, which is called QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum Edition. From a navigational standpoint, I just launched QuickBooks. This is a desktop program. I'm running on a Windows operating system, and I launched a thick client application. This is not a browser-based solution. Although it can be hosted by companies, the hosting would then result in you having to use remote desktop to access the remote desktop rather than using a browser. So even though QuickBooks Enterprise is being offered as a hosted solution, it will not run in a browser environment. So in this environment here, I'm going to navigate to the home entry screen of the sales order processing module by clicking on the icon I see here on the screen. Alternatively, you can navigate in the old Windows style program, which allows you to, for example, create a new sales order from the screen here as well. So either way, I'm going to end up in the sales order entry screen here, and that will look this way. Now, on the sales order entry screen here, you'll see that I have a number of options that I can select from in the ribbon part of this screen. So as you can see here, you have a number of sub options or menus for each one of the sales order related functionality. Also, you can create different templates, which is a quite nifty feature. And these templates will change the screen the way you see it on the screen in general. So for example, if I go to a sales order from a sales rep, in here I get many more fields that I didn't have before. These fields are driven by the template that I'm choosing, and the template is something that your partner will assist you in setting up typically. And in here, I'm about to create a template from a sales rep order. You do have some limitations with regards to the screen design. For example, you cannot move fields around or reorganize the screen the way you want to possibly reorganize it for your particular organization. So this is the starting of a sales order. And I'm going to switch over to Microsoft real quick to show you this initial navigation as well. So now I've switched over to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central product. So Business Central used to be known as Dynamics NAV or NAV. It's an accounting software company out of Denmark that Microsoft acquired in 2002. The original software development for that code started back in the late 80s. So some of our clients get confused because Business Central to them is a new product, when in fact it's a product that has been around for 30 years and has been weaponized, basically, which is our terminology for being placed on the internet and web browser based rather than thick client or client server topology that is quite common for ERP systems from not too long ago. So, and this is the home screen. I'm logged into the home page into this company called Kronos USA, as you can see on the top left-hand side. One of the big differences between Microsoft and QuickBooks is, of course, it's web-based versus local Windows-based. The other issue is that it also has the ability to customize your home screen. So I'm logged in as a business executive. As a result of that, I have certain menu structures and menu options, but I can change my role so that my home screen looks quite different. So if I go to my settings in here, I can pick from a different role center. And for example, if I make myself an accountant or a production manager or something else other than a business manager, my screen would look different. So that's one of the differences that you have in the solution. So from a navigational point of view, to get to the sales order screen, just to keep it exactly the same as comparison to QuickBooks, you can hit the drop down in the sales menu and select the sales order option, which is right in here, and that would get you to the sales order screen. Alternatively, you can hit the search button in here and enter sales order, and the system would give you a sales order option here for a business manager to get into the sales order entry screen. So when you launch it works a little different in that it starts with a blank screen, just like we have on the QuickBooks side of things. And in here you can start your data entry to look at a sales order. So this is a brand new sales order entry screen. And we're about to walk through the process of creating a sales order between the two systems. So now I'm going to switch back to QuickBooks to continue this process. So back in QuickBooks, I'm now going to select the customer for which I'd like to place the order. So I can do this in a number of ways. I can hit the drop down and simply look at a list of my customers, or I can start typing the name of the customer. So in this case, Jackson Corporation was the customer I like to work with, and I simply start typing the name, and the company will be retrieved and pop up automatically. The Advanced Inventory module and Enterprise solution also supports multiple currencies, which is why you see the USD currency symbol behind Jackson Corporation. The way QuickBooks handles multi-currencies is that it supports different currencies for each customer and or vendor, but you cannot mingle currencies within the same customer or the same vendor. Now in my case, I'm going to pick Jackson and I can use the name. There is no field in QuickBooks called the customer ID. As a result of that, that concept doesn't exist. It strictly goes by name. So I pick Jackson Corporation. As soon as I pick that, I will then see my template of sales order. And on the right-hand side, I'll see a section in the system that I'll call ribbon. And the ribbon will tell me a number of things about this customer just as soon as I picked up the customer. In this case, a phone number, an email address, a current balance, whether or not I have other open sales orders in the system here with the number 1. If there's previous sales orders that have to be invoiced yet, and that's the number 2 over here, and I could drill down on those by simply clicking on these 2 buttons. You can also see recent transactions for this customer and recent activity, as well as notes that you can see down here. That's on the customer tab. You can also go to the transactional tab and you would see transactional information about this particular sales order that I'm currently working with, such as who entered the transaction. If this sales order was based on a quotation, it would show me a related transaction of a quote. And again, I could have notes specific to this transaction. After I do the basic customer selection, I can then pick the template that I briefly discussed a moment ago. I have a date of the sales order here, a sales order number that the system assigns automatically based on a last used number and the next number, and I can manually override it. But when I manually override it, it's possible for me to actually affect the next sales order in line. So you need to be careful with doing that. And then I get into fields like PO number. So I'm going to put in a test PO in here, the terms for the customer, when the due date would be, who the sales rep is, the ship date on the transaction that I expect to happen, how I'm expecting to ship it. And when I do that, I have to select from the list here, in this case UPS. And if I had UPS red versus blue versus ground, so next day versus 2 days or what have you, I would have to add additional ship via codes in here to make that differentiation. In this particular template, I'm also using FOB as a code, and I can do multiple ship to addresses. So this particular customer, I set up with 3 different locations, and as you can see here, I see the codes for the locations in here. So this is typically at my customer's store codes, and let's say I want to ship to the store code 301. As I click on that, it updates it and shows me that this is an address in Los Angeles. So even though this customer is located somewhere else, I'm shipping the product to my to their Los Angeles warehouse location. So this is the order header information to start with, and it's very straightforward, very clean interface, not a lot of complexities here. And it's fairly straightforward from a user perspective. Now I'll switch back to Microsoft to show you that part. So back in the Microsoft environment, I am now going to create the sales order. One of the biggest differences right off the bat is that the sales order number that the system assigned doesn't have to be just a singular number, but it could be a combination of different options. So quite popular in the distribution wholesale industries, as well as manufacturing, is that you have different types of sales orders, not just one sales order. In this case, for example, this particular organization makes a differentiation between an internally created sales order versus an order from a sales rep or an order that they received at a show that they went to. And you might decide as an organization to have different sales order numbers that are assigned to that. So in my case here, for example, I have a regular sales order, which is just SO. The 19 reflects the year I'm in, and it will switch automatically to SO20 when I hit 2020 and so forth. And the same holds true for these other numbering sequences. So you can have some logic in these numbers as well that are date driven. And in this case, if I have a rep order, I want it to be SOR 19 versus just SO. And if it's a show order, I want to make it to SOS 19 and then the show order. So let's say I'm doing a rep order. So I'm going to record the sales order from a rep by selecting the line. And then I go to my customer selection. Now, right off the bat, you can tell that there's also a big difference in the customer selection of the sales order transaction. So I got my number, SOR 19-1000. Now I'm picking a customer. So I could have typed in the number. So just by typing in adaptum, for example, it shows me a sub-selection of that. I could have also typed in a customer number. So if your organization is more keen on the idea of having unique numbers for each customer, this system will support that. And then finally, instead of using any of that, I could have typed in a zip code. So as you can see here, the zip code and the phone number are also searchable fields by default. Now this can be changed and modified, so you can search by other things like primary contact names, actual addresses, cities, anything of that nature can be added to this lookup table. So in my case, I'm going to search by zip code here. So I'm typing in 3177 and everything that's in that range will come up automatically. So let's say I'm grabbing these guys here, and that's Editum Corporation, and they're in Georgia, headquartered, and I have their email and phone number and all this stuff pulling up automatically. Now, as soon as I pull up the customer, you'll see the same thing that QuickBooks has here on the right-hand side, and it's visually presented a little differently, but it conceptually has the same purpose. So you can have related transactions that come up automatically. Like if I want to see other sales orders that are going on for this customer, I can click on here. I have other sales invoices or quotations or things like that. They're all accessible to me, and they show up here on the right-hand side, and I can simply click on them and they would retrieve. Also in this area called the ribbon, I see customer information such as credit limits, names, phone numbers, fax, and all this information. It's very similar to what QuickBooks showed you. It has a little bit more information in here as far as payment, contact names and things like that, available credit with a drill down on the available credit as well, so you can see the credit related information here. And then finally, as I get into sales line details, you'll see this shipping, ribbon displaying as well. But we'll get to that in a moment. I'm going to continue on here. As you can see here, I have an actual order date. The posting and due dates are calculated based on the invoicing of the sales order. You can have a requested delivery date. So let's say these guys want me to ship this product out the day after tomorrow. And then I can separate a promised delivery date on here as well. So for example, I can say, well, they want it on the 26th, but I promised to them on the 27th because I know 26 is going to be too tight. External document is a PO number. So in here, I'm going to type in test PO number 123. And then I have a salesperson code. I have a built-in CRM integration. So there's a campaign and an opportunity number that's related to marketing activity, and I can complete that in here as well. Finally, there's work description and an assigned user ID and a responsibility center. So as you can see, there's a number of more fields. And one of the criticisms that a lot of people have about Business Central is they say, well, at first glance, it's quite complicated. So I can reduce the complexities of the solution as a user myself without ever talking to an IT department. So for example, there's a field in here called your reference, and I would like to get rid of it. So in here, I can go to personalization, hit this option, and I go into a personalization mode for the sales order screen. I can click on this field here, hit that little red box there and say hide this field. I do not want to see this field anymore. So I'm just going hide, it's disappeared, it's gone. I hit done, and now I just customize my own sales order entry screen, and I'm getting rid of the fields that I don't want. Of course, you can add fields back on and move them around as well. So this is quite a difference in approach to what you can do with QuickBooks Enterprise. And this is just because you're in a web environment, you have a little bit more flexibility on there. Finally, just to complete the comparison, we didn't cover ship to addresses here because this is just customer selection. So the ship to address information is in the shipping and billing section of the software right in here. So it's below the line details. And when you ship to, you can either ship to the default sell to address or to a custom address. That's what we did for QuickBooks Enterprise. So I'm going to an alternate shipping address, and I also set up 3 different examples for this particular customer as well. As you can see here, the main selection is a little bit more meaningful in that QuickBooks only showed me the codes. It didn't show me the names or the cities in there. And in here, it will do that. So in Microsoft, you have a little bit more granular visibility, and you can see the right one. The other thing that's really important for distribution wholesale is that these ship to addresses could have different locations out of which you want to ship product. So if somebody in Atlanta, if my customer in Atlanta buys it, I ship it from my main warehouse. But if somebody in Los Angeles wants to sell the product, I have a West Coast warehouse as well. In that case, I want to switch to the West Coast location automatically. So I can do that by clicking on that store, and then it updates the address and all of that. The other thing that's related to the ship to address in Microsoft is the agent and the agent service level. So the agent is, if I'm a small package carrier, a distributor, then I can have my main folks in there like FedEx and UPS and DHL and what have you. But in addition to that, you can have a level of service. So UPS offers, as you know, several different levels of service. And in here, you can assign that as well. So when you set up the address, you can also specify an agent and agent service as a default, which you can then still override at that point. So this is how you would select the ship to address and the default ship warehouse from which you're shipping product to this particular customer. So I'll switch back to QuickBooks now to continue the line entry for the solution. In QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum Edition, and Platinum Edition added a number of features in this screen that you don't have in any other QuickBooks product, including Enterprise Silver and Gold Edition, which is the warehouse site and the bin location. So on the item selection, this is going to become important right now. So when I go down to my item, I can type in part of the name of the item, which is again not the description. So in my case, I'm going to type in 10150, and I will pick this item that's a plastic raw material product, model 1234. If I didn't have the name or number handy, I could also select a find option in here under find selected items, and I can search by other fields in the database, including manufacturing part numbers, a preferred vendor, purchasing description, or a sales description. So in my case, for example, I want to search for plastique in description field and hit search, and it'll show me all the items where that's as a match. So I want to do that first line item here, and I hit add selected item, and the system will add the first line to my sales order. Now on the description field, I could now go in and add additional text that I could simply record in here and have part of the description as well. Now in the order quantity here, I have the little icon that appears next to order quantity, and this is a quick lookup for seeing what's going on in my database as far as this item availability is concerned. So I hit the lookup on there, and I can see that for this item, I have a number of units in various locations. So I have 100 units in Atlanta, I have 50 units in Las Vegas, and 12 units in my main warehouse. These warehouse locations can be set up, of course, for different purposes. And also in here, you can set up additional inquiries at the same time. So for example, when you click on show details, I can see what other information is on other sales orders, on other purchase orders, or on other pending builds for this item. So a pending build is an assembly feature in QuickBooks. And a pending bill will show you any items, transactions where this particular item is used as a component on a assembly transaction. So in here you can retrieve existing purchase orders or other sales orders that already have this item on there. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and select close here, and I want to just do, let's say, 5 units out of that, 5 pounds out of this particular location, and I'm going to pick my Atlanta warehouse here. So once you select the site, you can also have a bin, and this has to be turned on or off for this site as well. And these settings are system-wide. So if you decide to track bins, then they're going to be tracked in the entirety of the solution. So in my case here, I've also activated lot number tracking. So for this item, I might have lots. In this case, I show 100 units of lot number 060119-ABC as an available lot. I don't have to assign it to a sales order at this time because I'm just taking the order, so I can leave this blank. And the same holds true, by the way, for sites and bins, but you can assign it to a particular site and a particular bin. The selling price pops up automatically. The selling price might be driven by the item price sheets. There are some advanced pricing capabilities in QuickBooks Enterprise as well, and they're essentially driven by the customer and or the item. In this case, that's how I selected the item. As soon as I selected the item, I could also see other information about the item in this screen here that I showed you with the order quantity as well. So now I'm going to switch into the Microsoft environment and show you how this is done in a Microsoft setting. So back in my Microsoft environment, I'm now on the line level details for a particular sales order that we started just a moment ago. One of the key differences out of the box is that in Microsoft, you have the ability to not just sell or create a sales order for items like I showed you in QuickBooks Enterprise, but you can also create sales orders for other non-item type transaction line items. Meaning, for example, if you just want to do an invoice or a sales order for a GL account that generates revenue in a GL account, you can do that. A resource is a person or a time billable person that you can invoice a customer for or take an order from a customer for as well. So instead of setting it up as an item, you can have a resource that you see here in this listing. And then there's a couple other options that are sophisticated functions surrounding fixed assets and charge items, which is related to landed cost as well. I'm just going to stick with a basic item example, but I wanted to just show you that out of the box, there's a number of more options here surrounding a sales order in Microsoft. Now, one important other concept that exists in Microsoft's environment is when you do an item selection, you don't have to be reliant on your entire item database. So a lot of distributors we work with have very large catalogs of products, and they carry 50, 100,000 items, 200,000 items that are in their system. However, this particular customer might only purchase a sub-selection of these items called a product or a customer catalog. Now in here you can set up a sub-selection using a cross-reference code. So when I hit the lookup here, I only see the 3 items that this customer buys from me, instead of all of my items, which could be hundreds of thousands of items. So in this case, this customer has their own customer number, and instead of me typing in my customer number, which in this case, for example, is the 1908-S or 1928-P, I can actually type in the customer's number or just select it from the drop-down. So in this case, I want to create a sales order for this item here, and I would just do so by selecting that from the list here. So that's one way of doing this. The other way of doing it is just to look up the item number from our item database. So just by clicking from this column to this column, you are searching the system very differently. Of course, you can still sell this customer an item that they've never purchased before, and you would do that in this screen here, and you hit the lookup on the item number there. Now, the item lookup by default in Microsoft looks for both the number and the description, and you can also select from a full list. So you can click on the full list here, and in the full list you see other information such as vendor item numbers, different fields that you can add in here with different views you can create, and you can add a number of different ways of finding the items that you're looking for. You can then search by any of this using the search function as well, and identify the item by then clicking on the item number. So there is quite a few of options in there, and the biggest approach difference is that you can have a catalog for customers, which by the way exists on the vendor side for purchase orders as well. Now, the description can also be modified here, and you can add additional localized descriptions there as well. The location was the warehouse location from which I want to ship this. So let's say this is going out of my West Coast location, and the same thing holds true here as far as quantity is concerned. So when I go to quantities here, I'll see item information as soon as I entered the item or selected the item. So it shows me how many units I need to fulfill this sales order. It shows me how many are available and how much is actually in inventory, if I have any scheduled receipts, if I have any reservations for this item. So unlike QuickBooks, NAV, Business Central actually has the ability to create a reservation for items as well. So if you have a special customer that wants to have a particular product and you want to put that aside for them, you can do that with a real reservation entry in the system as well. And then finally, you pull up other information such as costing methods and other things that might be relevant. By the way, all this information can be easily hidden as well. If you don't want to show all of this information to your team, you can easily do that also. Now, from that perspective here, I can then also go to lines, and from the lines, I can take a look at the item availability. So in QuickBooks, you could quite easily tell the availability by location, and I'll show you that screen in just a moment. But I wanted to make sure you also see this option here in Microsoft that allows you to see it by period. So period is a big thing in most distribution wholesale organizations where although you might be over allocated on a product in the short term, in the long term you're fine because you have purchase orders coming in to cover the distribution shortcomings. So with this type of analysis, you can see when exactly the product would be available. So it introduces a timeline concept into your order activity, which doesn't exist as such in QuickBooks. But I'm going to keep it the same in terms of comparisons. I'm going to look at location instead of that. And when I take a look at this particular item, I see what kind of information you have available for this particular item. So this is the 1928-P item, my Amsterdam lamp. And it shows me my warehouses. It shows me how many units I need, how many are scheduled to come in, how many are currently on hand, and what my projected availability is. So Microsoft also has a inventory forecasting module that you can activate, and with that you can see some different information based on available and projected available balances and things of that nature. So in my case, I'm going to look at West Coast, and I have 100 units on hand, so this is plenty, and I can fulfill this order out of my West Coast location quite easily. So I'm going to do that and say, okay, these guys want, let's say, 2 units, and then of course the price comes up automatically. Do a line discount on it and can verify this for the item itself. So that's how you enter an item on a sales order in Microsoft's Business Central product. So now I'm back in QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum, and I've entered the customer, updated the ship to addresses and the various conditions and terms of sale. I've identified an item, put the item on this sales order transaction, and I'm now ready to communicate with the customer a confirmation. So a confirmation can be done in different ways. You can just print it right in here, or you can email it from right in here. QuickBooks supports both a local Outlook client or email client, or a web-based email client with their setup, and both of them work quite well. You can also select to do batch processing, essentially, where the system says to print this transaction later or email this transaction later with these little checkboxes. And then there's a functionality in QuickBooks that lets you mass deliver and mass print sales order confirmations in a batch rather than doing it one by one. You can attach a file like a PDF from a customer, a PO confirmation or something of that nature, and that would be done in the attach file concept here. So normally you would just go into print. When you print, you can do a preview, you can print the sales order. There's also the ability to print picking tickets and packing slips and shipping labels, and you can save it as a PDF file. So you have a full assortment of fulfillment related documents that you can print from right in here. A couple other things that is quite nice while we're looking at the screen is you can copy sales orders from previous transaction, or you can create memorized sales orders where the system has certain items for certain customers that they buy over and over and over again, and you can memorize these transactions as a kind of a template concept. And with that, you can retrieve these transactions down the road over again. So in my case, I'm just going to do a preview, and I didn't pick a lot number yet, but I can just ignore that, and it prints me a sales order. These forms are completely customizable, so please excuse the rugged looking sales order confirmation here, but obviously we normally make that look much nicer than that. That's basically how you generate a confirmation and how you communicate with the customer about the sales order itself. You can of course delete it, or save it and create new copies all from here in the same screen. I'll take a look at Microsoft and show you how this process works in the Microsoft environment. So back in Microsoft world, I have my order here. I've double checked all the information, line item, address, ship to addresses, and all those related functionalities that I want to make sure are populated properly. Now to prepare it, as far as an order confirmation, I go to that. What QuickBooks does not have that Microsoft does have is workflow management. And that means that you can have a dollar sensitive capability of saying any order over $250 has to be reviewed by my supervisor. So Christoph cannot enter a large dollar sales order on his own, but after he's done entering the transaction, I have to click on this request approval and send an approval request to my supervisor. These approval requests can be dollar sensitive and dollar driven, and based on the amount, they can go up my supervisor / manager food chain, or they can jump directly to the right level depending on how the workflow is configured. So the workflows themselves do not exist in QuickBooks anywhere in the system. In Microsoft Dynamics 365, you can do this based on a number of different things and a number of different transactions. We're keeping our example to the sales order processing module, so this is only the area I'm going to show you, but just to let you know, there's workflows surrounding customers onboarding, vendor onboarding, item onboarding, credit limit change for customers, a number of other functionality. You can put a workflow around it. Also, you'll see a reference in here to a workflow logo from Microsoft Flow. That's a new module Microsoft has released, and it's part of the Office 365 product line. And there's an integration between Microsoft Business Central and Microsoft Flow in here. So instead of using the templated defaults, you can literally create your own flow from Business Central, and that can communicate with other systems like MailChimp or shipping subsystems or other systems of that nature that have web service interface capabilities. As far as the ordering, the printing is concerned, typically I would just go in here and I would either email the confirmation or print the confirmation. So just to keep the example exactly the same, I'm going to say print confirmation here. When you print a confirmation, there's also a couple other options in here that you don't see in QuickBooks. Specifically, there is an interaction log that the system keeps track of, meaning that any interaction between you and the customer is being tracked in the CRM module of Business Central. With this, you can turn on or off whether or not this particular sending of this particular confirmation is being tracked. You can also turn on this feature to say an archive copy of this. So an archive is a copy of the sales order in a separate table called an archive table, and it will allow you to keep track of various versions of sales orders. When you then print, you can print either in preview, or when you print, you can go to either Word or PDF documents. In my case here, I'm going to go ahead and print to a PDF file as a preview just to show you what that looks like. And again, these are default forms. This is a default Kronos USA company file form, and that looks like this. So all these forms, of course, are customizable both on the Microsoft side as well as on the QuickBooks Enterprise side of things. So that's how we send confirmations out via either email or via hard copy confirmation document. Switching back to QuickBooks, I'll wrap up the last session regarding looking up existing sales orders. Back in QuickBooks Enterprise and Platinum Edition, and I've created a sales order. I'm just going to simply save and close the transaction. In my case, I backdated this, so it's giving me an error message, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Also, QuickBooks has an auto spell check feature that you can turn on or off, which is quite nice. So when you do change the descriptions on your line items here, it will catch any typos that you might have done as part of the data entry. Now, to retrieve a sales order itself, I have a number of options. I can go to my sales order screen, and instead of creating a new one, I can hit this find button here. And when I find it, I can go to a customer and say, okay, let me find the customer I'm dealing with, in this case, Jackson Corporation. I could put a date range of the order as well as a number or an amount of the order, and then find it that way. It shows me a number of transactions in the screen here. In this case, I have my $75 transaction here that I want to look for, but all sales orders for Jackson Corporation would appear. I can then just hit find here, and it would retrieve the sales order from the lookup window and populate my QuickBooks database system at that point. So that would be one option to do it. You can simply flip through the transactions as well with these VCR buttons up top in here, and that just kind of goes through the last orders that you have done in the system as well. Finally, another way to do it is when you're not in the sales order entry screen, but you're just on the customer screen. You can find customer sales orders by looking in the customer center, which is the screen you're now looking at. I can look at Jackson Corporation here, and under transactions, I can tell the system to look for open sales orders, and it would now show me all the sales orders that I have for this client, and I can double click on the sales order and retrieve the transaction that way. And so those are a couple of different ways on how you can find a sales order for a customer in QuickBooks Enterprise. And of course, there is a open sales order report by customer from a reporting standpoint as well. So if in case of having to share this data with an outside party that doesn't have access to QuickBooks directly, you can do that with this report as well. I'll switch to Microsoft to show you how you do the same thing in there. So back in Microsoft world of things, I'm looking at this sales order we just finished. I'm going to close that out by just getting out of that screen. So now I have a number of options as far as how I retrieve a sales order for a customer. Most popular one is probably just looking at a sales order listing. So straight out of the box, you can do a listing of sales orders in a listing page. And part of the listing page on the right-hand side, you will see fact boxes that refer to each line. So as I highlight a line, for example, my rep line here that we just created the order for, it will give me, information about the customer, whether or not they currently owe us money in the balance field here, if they have other total outstanding order dollars in invoices and things of that nature. You can also see customer details about who is our primary contact there and what's the available credit limit and things of that nature. If you use that, these things can be turned on or off. I'm keeping this simple example just to keep this moving forward quite easily. If I then find a transaction that I'm looking for, I can just hit and click on it. You can search by just about anything. So if I want to search by PO number, I can do that quite easily. And so just by typing in PO number in here, it finds me all PO numbers that contain 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. If I want to get rid of the filter, I can just hit the X and go back to my view here. So in my case, the PO number is actually 1, 2, 3. So I'm typing in 1, 2, 3, and it's a partial in-string search. Anything that contains the value 1, 2, 3 in the PO number will be retrieved. Also, what I can do in here is I can find the order a different way. So just like in QuickBooks, instead of searching by sales order number, I want to search by customer and then find the orders related to the customers. How do you do that? Is you go into the customer listing, which looks similar to the order listing that we were just looking at. The listing for customers can look like this. This is what's called a tile view, or you can create a listing view, which is more of the old school straight listing here that looks like this. And in here I can find my customer. In this case, the organization has a number of open sales orders. So I can see 4 sales orders for this company in here. Just by clicking on the number 4 here, I can see all the sales orders that this customer has. And here's my PO number as well. And I can click on the PO number, on the sales order number, and retrieve the actual sales order. So this is an example of how to do a sales order in both systems next to each other. I hope I gave you a good idea of how these systems differ from each other and how you would operate either one of them. And depending on what features or functions are important to you, this example might serve you to research one solution over the other. And keep in mind that this was just one particular transaction in this system overall. We looked at sales orders only and really haven't gone through any of the other functionality in the software. But this is a critical part for distribution, wholesale, and manufacturing organizations. So we wanted to make sure we cover this in this comparison of this document. I appreciate your time. Please feel free to reach out to us at 855-227-0700. My name is Christoph Reichert. I'm the founder of CBI Technology. But if you reach out to us, just hit extension 1 at our 800 number, and somebody in our sales department will be more than happy to talk to you. Have a great day. Take care.